I am Oliver, a psychologist, and today we'll delve into a deeper reflection on Farnese, one of the most fascinating yet underappreciated characters from the manga Berserk. Despite the brutal and chaotic world of Berserk, Farnese stands as a complex embodiment of privilege, neglect, and transformation, her story highlighting that even wealth and status cannot shield one from suffering. Unlike the central trio, Guts, Casca, and Griffith, Farnese's hardships were not rooted in material deprivation. She was born into an aristocratic family of immense wealth and influence, living in a world where most struggled with extreme poverty and a lack of resources. Her life, at least superficially, appeared to be one of comfort and luxury. Yet, this material abundance masked a profound emotional void. Her parents, consumed by their respective pursuits, her father engrossed in business and her mother in social frivolities, left Farnese to navigate her childhood in emotional isolation. Psychologically, neglect can be as devastating as more visible forms of hardship. Studies consistently demonstrate that children deprived of emotional validation and support often grow into adults plagued by feelings of inadequacy, striving endlessly yet never feeling enough. Farnese's childhood reflected this truth. Despite being surrounded by material wealth, she lived in what the manga itself describes as a golden prison. Her emotional needs were overlooked, and her parents compensated for their absence with gifts rather than presents. This lack of affection left Farnese searching for connection and purpose. When a child grows up without feeling seen or heard, they often develop maladaptive behaviors to gain attention or validation. Farnese's first taste of acceptance came in a deeply troubling form. She was praised for setting a heretic ablaze. In that moment, surrounded by the admiration of onlookers, she felt something she had never experienced before: recognition. For the first time, Farnese believed she was valued, but this validation came from acts of cruelty, shaping her view of herself and the world. The absence of meaningful connections in Farnese's life created a void that even her privilege couldn't fill. Though many served her, she lacked genuine relationships. This began to shift when she met a young boy named Serpico. Farnese, asserting her dominance in a manner reflective of her upbringing, declared that Serpico belonged to her. Despite her tyrannical behavior, Serpicoco became the first person to remain steadfastly by her side, enduring her mistreatment and offering her a semblance of stability. Their dynamic was undoubtedly toxic, but it functioned for Farnese because, for the first time, someone was there for her unconditionally. As Farnese grew older, her rebellion against her family's control became evident. Forced into an arranged marriage by her father, she set fire to her family's estate in an act of defiance, leading to her exile to a convent. It was here, and later as a member of the Holy Iron Chain Knights, that Farnese began to find a twisted sense of purpose. The rigid structure and punitive nature of the church gave her an outlet for the rage and frustration she had internalized for years. As the leader of the Knights, she found solace in punishing those deemed sinners. Her actions fueled by the same cruelty that had once earned her validation. Farnese's story is a tragic exploration of how neglect and a lack of emotional support can shape an individual's psyche. Her journey illustrates the long lasting impact of childhood experiences, particularly the absence of nurturing relationships. While she sought control and power to mask her vulnerabilities, her actions often reflected the pain of someone searching desperately for meaning and connection. In Berserk, no character is spared from suffering, but Farnese's narrative is a poignant reminder that privilege does not equate to happiness or fulfillment. Her arc challenges us to consider the weight of emotional neglect and the importance of compassion in shaping who we become. It was as if her actions were validated, aligning perfectly with her desire to punish and unite people in a distorted way. Farnese feels an intense need to protect the innocent, which is why she initially finds meaning in her faith and the church. However, everything changes when she encounters Guts. Guts has a profound impact on people's lives, often unintentionally. He doesn't persuade or preach, his mere presence is transformative. Their meeting proves to be a turning point for Farnese. At that time, she was part of the Holy See and tasked with capturing Guts, a wanted man. When she manages to apprehend him, she attempts to punish him. However, Guts escapes and later takes her captive. It is during this harrowing experience that Farnese begins to comprehend the horrors Guts endures. Witnessing his struggles firsthand forces her to question the foundations of her faith. This encounter is pivotal because Farnese had clung to religion primarily out of fear. Seeing Guts' reality makes her realize she may have been blindly following something she didn't truly believe in. Her belief system, heavily influenced by Mazgus, a religious zealot, begins to crumble when she sees Guts challenge and defeat him. Guts, someone who holds no reverence for religion or divine providence, fights with nothing to rely on but his own strength and willpower. Observing this, Farnese starts to reconsider her own actions and beliefs. After Guts defeats Mazgus, she pleads to join him on his journey. She is desperate to understand how a man without faith can persist, even thrive, in such a merciless world. Guts tells her she is free to make her own choices, a concept alien to Farnese. She was aimless, but the harsh environment of Guts' world, paradoxically, gave her a sense of direction and purpose. Walking alongside Guts, Farnese began to feel more grounded and human, realizing she wasn't as strong as she once believed. Farnese has always been deeply unstable, oscillating between extreme emotions, both positive and negative, with remarkable speed. Her intense feelings and erratic behavior exhibit traits consistent with borderline personality disorder, BPD. BPD is marked by emotional instability, impulsivity, and a distorted sense of reality. People with this condition often experience relationships, emotions, and self-identity in a turbulent and heightened way. Farnese's fear of abandonment, coupled with her desperate need for validation and security, mirrors many of the hallmarks of BPD. Those affected by this condition may exhibit sudden mood swings, paranoia, and even self-harming behaviors as a way to cope. Farnese's actions, such as self-inflicted pain, are emblematic of this struggle. Self-harm is not necessarily about seeking physical pain. For many, it is a means to distract from overwhelming emotional turmoil. The physical sensation offers temporary relief, albeit at the cost of deeper long-term damage. This behavior can become addictive as the brain starts associating relief with the act of self-harm, making it harder to resist over time. In the DSM-5, traits like feelings of emptiness, emotional instability, impulsivity, paranoia, and self-harm are listed as diagnostic criteria for BPD. Farnese displays many of these characteristics throughout the manga. Her self-destructive tendencies and unstable identity are manifestations of an ongoing internal battle. Despite her struggles, Farnese's journey with Guts becomes a path toward self-discovery, offering her glimpses of personal growth and a deeper understanding of her own vulnerabilities. A scientific study has confirmed that individuals who engage in self-harm often show activation in specific regions of the brain that help alleviate pain. Essentially, for many of these individuals, self-harm becomes a form of emotional regulation, a way to cope with intense internal suffering. This mechanism can be seen as a distorted strategy for easing the emotional pain they feel, giving them a brief sense of relief. In the case of the character we're discussing, her self-inflicted harm might stem from this same desire for relief from overwhelming emotional turmoil. Additionally, there's a striking element in her psychological makeup: self-loathing. It's widely known that people who self-harm are often their harshest critics. A 2014 study asked university students who had engaged in self-harm, alongside a control group of non-self-harming individuals, to keep a diary of their emotions for 2 weeks. The results revealed a stark contrast. Those who engaged in self-harm reported feelings of self-dissatisfaction far more frequently than those who did not. This dissatisfaction often manifested as severe self-criticism. Thus, it's clear that self-harm isn't just an act of emotional expression, but also a manifestation of profound self-reproach. The character, despite her harsh judgment of others, likely felt unworthy of love or care, which may have been the driving force behind her decision to pursue a new path, one that would eventually lead her to join Guts on his journey. In deciding to follow Guts, the character sought to learn from someone who had experienced the darkest aspects of the world and lived through the worst of it. This decision marks the beginning of a profound transformation. As she travels with him, she gains a new perspective on life, one that radically contrasts with her former belief in her own importance. Through the difficult experiences she shares with the group, particularly while caring for Casca, she discovers the true essence of altruism and passion. These realizations gradually alter her sense of self-worth and her view of the world. Before, the character was driven by a need to be seen as important, but now she finds meaning in simply being helpful and useful to others. This shift in focus diminishes her self-loathing and fosters a growing admiration for Guts. As she grows closer to him, she seeks his approval, feeling immense joy when she earns it. Her feelings become more complex as she notices the bond between Guts and Casca, stirring a sense of jealousy within her. Despite this, she continues to assist in Casca's recovery, showing a level of selflessness she had not been able to express before. Her development doesn't stop there. In Chapter 217, she faces her fear head-on when she protects Casca. Despite an overwhelming urge to retreat and abandon the situation, she stands firm, helping Casca until Guts arrives to save them both. When Guts thanks her for her courage, she breaks down in tears. Interestingly, every time she weeps throughout the series, it's because she feels truly useful, because she's faced a challenge and risen to it. This emotional growth mirrors the psychological process known as exposure therapy. Avoiding feared situations temporarily alleviates anxiety, but actively confronting those fears sends the opposite message to the brain, a message of acceptance. By staying in a feared situation, the brain has the opportunity to recognize that there is nothing to fear, and that one can handle the circumstances at hand. The more a person faces their fears, the less anxious they eventually become. For this character, the process of confronting her fears is central to her transformation. In recent chapters, she struggles with intense guilt when Griffith once again takes Casca away, feeling personally responsible for her. However, this guilt doesn't lead her to self-punishment like it once would have. Instead, it reflects her deep desire to be needed by someone. This yearning is rooted in her past experiences, shaped by her relationship with her parents and caregivers, which significantly impacted her sense of self-worth. Yet, as she grows, she learns that she is no longer the vulnerable child who relied on others for emotional support. She now possesses autonomy and the ability to make choices for herself. Healing, as she discovers, doesn't mean the pain never existed. It means that the pain no longer controls her life. By taking responsibility for her own actions, by facing her fears, she begins to rebuild her life, finding autonomy and meaning in a way that helps her heal. The journey is ongoing, but Farnese's growth shows how facing personal challenges and taking responsibility for one's own healing can lead to a deeper understanding of life and a sense of empowerment. This journey toward healing and self-discovery is not just about overcoming fear, but about embracing one's ability to shape their own life narrative, no longer defined by past trauma or emotional wounds. Through her transformation, Farnese teaches us that healing is not about forgetting the pain, but about learning how to live with it and still move forward. This story is far from over, and her journey is a testament to the power of self-empowerment and the profound impact it can have on one's ability to heal.